Okay. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of writing an equation of a line through the given point, having the given slope. I'm going to do 2 examples, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try one on your own. In order to write an equation of a line, we need 2 things. We need a point and a slope. We need to know through what point it passes and the slope that it will have. I have a point and a slope here, and so I'm going to use, there are several ways to do this, but I'm going to use the point slope formula for the line. Here we go. Alright, I'm going to bring this in just a bit. Make sure that you can see it. This is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Now, this is the point slope formula, and what we have is we have a place for a point. We have 3 places for a point and a slope. So what I've done is I've labeled the point x1, y1. Here's the slope. Now we're going to look and see these are the only places, okay, into which you're going to insert numbers. Only this place, and this place. This is for the point and the slope. Here we go. Y minus -2 equals 1/3 x minus 3. Now let me just pause for a minute and make sure that everybody understands. The formula owns the minus. The problem has a negative for the y, so I can't combine those and just put a minus there, y minus 2. I can't do that. I have to show the formula and the negative. So I'm going to actually simplify it now, though. Whenever I see a negative sign, and I'm teaching others how to do this, I think the simplest thing to do is to always fix a minus sign. Whenever I see a minus sign, is to fix a minus sign. And when I say fix it, I mean using 2 marks with your pencil. Okay, you do basically the definition of subtraction. The definition of subtraction is adding the opposite. So we add the opposite. Here's another one. Add the opposite. So I never really am going to end up using a subtraction sign anywhere. I'm going to fix them always. I just think that's easier. Now, I'm going to clean this up a bit because I know that y plus plus is just plus. So y plus 2 is equal to 1/3 x plus -3. All right. At this point, I'm going to use the distributive. Now, it doesn't say what form to have into what form we need to have it in the end, but I'm going to go ahead and get it into y equals mx plus b. The main reason is just because then it's easy to graph if I want to graph it later on. So, I'm going to use the distributive. On the right side, I'm going to distribute the 1/3 to both here and here. And the distributive, you know, is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. Plus, now I have 1/3 times -3. What I teach students is that whenever I'm doing multiplication and division with anything relating to fractions, multiplication and division with fractions, I'm always going to have improper fractions or fractions, never mixed numbers. Improper fractions or fractions. So if you still can't picture it, come over to the side and let's look at it. That's a -3. I'm going to make it an improper fraction. Improper fractions and fractions for multiplication and division. Here we go. Most people would want to take this and divide by a 3 at the top and the bottom, and that allows me to basically reduce those, or divide them is what's really happening. -1 over 1 is -1. So multiplying fractions means I multiply across horizontally after some people call it cross-reduce. Now, at this point, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, because that's going to give me the slope-intercept form. Even though it didn't really ask for that, I'm going to go ahead and do that just for myself. Now here we are, let me erase that, and here we are with a -1 minus 2. Now if you're not sure what to do with that, just think, what did I do here? I didn't multiply or divide, I subtracted 2. So you're going to subtract 2. Well, if you still can't picture it, write it. Negative 1 minus 2. That's what we have, negative 1 minus 2. So I write it horizontally, and then I fix any subtraction sign. And you look at that, and there aren't a whole lot of people who can't do this thing if you've experienced integers at all. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3, and that's the answer. Okay? All right, so now we're going to go ahead to the blue one, and then I'm going to ask you to try one on your own. Here we go. Let's write the formula. Okay, and we're going to plug in, I've already labeled the point, and so I'm just going to drop the numbers in where they're supposed to be. All right, my next step is to not do anything but fix subtraction signs, okay? So here we go, plus negative, plus plus. Remember 2 marks with your pencil, always to fix. All right, I am going to go ahead and clean it up. Y plus negative 4 is equal to 2/5 without distributing yet. Now, to me, that just is easier. It looks cleaner. Now I'm going to distribute the 2/5. Y plus negative 4 is equal to 2/5 x, oops, it's got to look like a 5, plus, now, 2/5 times 3. Remember, in multiplication, always mixed numbers, always improper fractions or whole numbers, or integers. Improper fractions or integers. Here we go. If we can't picture it in our head, we're going to, again, turn it into either fractions or improper fractions. That's all we can use. We're going to look across and see if we can divide by some same number at the top and the bottom, and we can't. So we're going to go horizontally, and that's going to be our answer, 6/5. Okay, so now this is an improper fraction, but just hold on. Here we go. I'm ready to basically finish by going plus 4 and plus 4. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make this as intuitive as possible. And I'm going to make a recommendation that we basically turn the improper fraction into a mixed number. Now there's another school of thought that says, oh, just make that 4/1, get a common denominator, and go. And I don't particularly care for that, method, because for some reason it seems to take the intuition out of it for me. And so what I'm going to recommend is that in adding and subtracting with fractions, that we never leave an improper. We always use mixed numbers. So over here with multiply and divide, it's always improper fractions with fractions. In adding and subtracting, I suggest mixed numbers. So never leave an improper fraction in adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting, always mixed numbers, which means this. I'm going to pull this to the side and look at it. And if I see an improper fraction, I'm going to turn it into a mixed number, because it helps the intuition of dealing with the fractions for me. If I look at 6/5 and I try to turn that into a mixed number, I can see in my mind's eye that a 5/5 can be pulled out, which is just one whole, and I'm left with 1/5. So that turns into 1 and 1/5. And there are not a whole lot of people who can't do this. This is really intuitive. 1 1/5 plus 4 is just 5 1/5. Now, if we had done it the 4/1 and get a comment, we'd still be working on it. This is faster and more intuitive. So we have 5 1/5 for my answer. Get that written down like that so you can see where it stops. 5 1/5. Now, I'd like for you to pause the video at this point, and I'd like for you to do the next problem thinking all along, anytime I'm multiplying, I'm going to make improper fractions if there are fractions involved, and with the integers. And in adding and subtracting, I'm going to make mixed numbers if there are any fractions involved. And so I'll trust that you'll pause it, and then I'll give you the answer. All right, to make sure that I get the answer written before the camera runs out, I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the answer is y is 1/5 x plus 7 2/5. Y equals 1/5 x plus 7 2/5.